want to first just talk a little bit about, bare knuckle and what do you think, why do you think that this bare knuckle has been such a hit over the last couple of years? I mean, it seems like it came out of nowhere. At first, fans were kind of like about it, but it seems like now they're like really warming up to it. Like, what do you think why do you think that is all of a sudden?
I think any type of sports fan, Amy, and thank you for having me on, by the way.
Of
This is
course.
awesome. Any type of sports fan, our appetite for excitement, for dynamic finishes, electrifying plays, it's insatiable. And so over the years, we've been entertained with the Edson Barboza spinning back kicks of the world and the kick to the face from an Anderson Silva, or a Vitor Belfort or Lyoto Machida, if it's Randy on the receiving side, or Vitor. And we've seen all kinds of great combat sports throughout the years. But at the end of the day, when it comes to combat, bare knuckle's the oldest form of combat, but it's the most dynamic form that we are seeing right now, Amy. And that is because of what I just said. Boom, it is all over just like that. I mean, our fans since 1993 in mixed martial arts, they've become more educated, as you know, with the ground game. They appreciate jiu-jitsu much more than they did in the early years. Yet at the end of the day, they want to go home and talk about that highlight reel knockout, that highlight reel finish. And that is what bare knuckle, that platform, is providing for combat fans. And I think all of us in this world, especially with everything going on with the pandemic, we've sat back and we have this appetite for something new. And even though it's the oldest, it's now the newest, and it's taking on at a massively awesome pace. And I'm just blessed to be part of it.
And we spoke a little bit about the Trigon in the last call. The bringing the action towards the middle. Is that something that you think the UFC or just MMA in general could adapt in some way? I mean, I know they have discussed how the smaller octagon has shown to be a little bit more exciting. Or do you think that that's something that's really unique to boxing?
Well, the Trigon is unique to one and only organization, and selfishly, that's ours. That's BYB Extreme. That's our baby. That's the Trigon, and as the octagon is the UFC. In fact, it was kind of funny, and I'm glad to see that Oscar De La Hoya posted today that he's feeling better. Of course, Evander Holyfield took his place, but when I did a show for Oscar recently, Bally's Fight Night, he said the word octagon. And of course, him and Dana go back and forth a little bit. And Oscar stopped himself and he's like, whoa, wait, I can't say that. That's my buddy Dana's place. I mean, in our cage. But much to your point, the Trigon is BYB Extreme. And that is what separates us from every other bare knuckle organization in the world. And yes, it does force confrontation. It does really up the finish rate, which is already very high, Amy, in bare knuckle boxing. There's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to run. You can still use some good head movement. You can still turn the corner. It's just a really tight, sharp corner if you're going to turn it. The big and small octagon. Now, you've made a great point. There have been guys that said, yeah, I like the smaller octagon. Well, I've spoken to Matt Mitrione, who said to me, well, the first time I fought Big Country, it was on The Ultimate Fighter, and it was in the smaller octagon, and that worked against me because of my athleticism. Okay, that's a different story. That doesn't matter when I'm talking about the Trigon. The Trigon is ours. The Trigon is going to be what everybody sees when they think of BYB Extreme. Or when you think of BYB Extreme, you go, oh, they're the ones with the triangle combat surface, which, by the way, is the smallest surface in combat sports. And doing my last show with the Magic Man, with Paulie Malignaggi, and of course, Benny had, commentated about the Trigon before. Benny was amazed, obviously, from day one. But Paulie, who fought Artem Lobov in bare knuckle, Paulie was even like, man, this Trigon is even crazier. And he loved it. He loved it. He said, there is room for footwork, but you better be very, very slick. And a lot of the movement better come from the hips and the upper body. And Isaiah Quinones at the last show, he just turned that corner so quickly and delivered that knockout. That's the type of things you are going to see on that small combat surface, which is ours, the Trigon. And for me, selfishly, Amy, I get to say, and we'll see you right back here next time inside the Trigon.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, I was looking at the photos of it and I'm looking at some clips. I think that's a really unique, cool idea. And I think it also offers, or not offers, it makes the fighters have to train differently than they would any other way. And so I would love to talk to a fighter sometime and see how they have to, change up their training regime. But
let me share that, not to interrupt you. Let me share a quick story with you about that, because it'll be pertinent to Reese Archer, who's from Team Body Shop. AJ McKee is my guy, 18-0, just beat Patricio Pitbull to win the Featherweight World Grand Prix. I'm getting old, Amy, because I called Antonio, his father's fights in the UFC, AJ and Bellator. But one of the members of their team, YL Watson, was on our last card. And YL basically said at Team Body Shop, they roped it off. They taped it off, and they trained in a very small combat area to try to adjust to the dimensions of the Trigon. So much to your point, that's exactly what these guys and women are doing in camp to try to prepare for the adjustments that need to be made in that small little triangle of danger.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I can't wait to see. This weekend, there's going to be a fight. I was wondering if you could talk to me a little bit about some of the fighters on the card that maybe UFC or MMA fans would be interested in tuning in for.
Well, the biggest one that UFC and MMA fans, the name they will recognize the most is Desmond Green. Desmond Green had great success in Bellator, fought Daniel Weichel in a tournament years ago, and Daniel Weichel won that featherweight tournament eventually. Did very well in his time with the UFC, has an incredible record, trains at Sanford MMA with some of the best in the world. In fact, Linton Vassell, who's a beast of a man. Linton Vassell will be there. Sean Soriano will be there. Basically, most of the Sanford MMA team will be in attendance at the show on Saturday to support their teammate. So Desmond Green is a great story. There's no question as far as MMA is concerned. Others that people would really kind of relate to from their days, I'm thinking more from olden day MMA, not as many, which in a way, Cordestedt, of course, had a good run as well. It's funny when you go back to Desmond, I was at the UFC when he was in Bellator, and I was at Bellator when he was at the UFC. So I get to meet the Predator for the first time, or call his fight for the first time, which is going to be awesome on Saturday. The other men on the card are ones that have already made the transition or are transitioning for the first time. There are veterans like Pablo Caballero, like Isaiah Quinones, like Carlos Lopez, Sam Liera, Carl Jefferson, Jeff Chiffins. He's in our co-main event. This is a great story, Amy, because this is a young man who has not competed in mixed martial arts, not competed in any other karate or taekwondo, no wrestling, no pro boxing, bare knuckle. And he threw himself right to the wolves. And he got eaten up by the pack early. He started in BKFC and he opened up 0-3. But I watched all those fights, Amy, and he was humble about it with bruises all over his face. He's like, I'm learning. I'm getting better. I'm getting better. And since he has made the transition to our organization, he's unbeaten, thus his position in the co-main event. And I think that's a cool story, because for a guy to say, all right, doesn't mean he hasn't fought before, obviously, but for a guy to say, I'm going to test the waters and I'm going to jump right into the deep end with no gloves, that's a tough dude right there. And to see the advancement of his skills is really, really cool. And he obviously has a huge heart, because I watched those early fights, and he will tell you he blocked way too many punches with his face early on in those fights. He's going to try to avoid doing that on Saturday night.
Well, it is a great story. I think my final question for you is, obviously this weekend there's a big Triller fight. You mentioned Evander Holyfield.
Yes.
And you guys are going up against that. So I'm wondering what you guys feel like is the reason why fans should tune in for you guys instead of this you know, I don't want to call it a freak fight, but it's a little bit of a show, you know, it's a little
Sure.
less serious than something else. So I'm curious, what would you say to fans who are trying to decide between the two?
Dollar bill, y'all. Save your money. We are free. We're live and free on our YouTube channel, BYB Extreme, 8 in the East, 5 in the West. Here's the deal. I love Oscar De La Hoya, Evander Holyfield the same. Okay, Vitor Belfort, one of my favorite people in the world. Anderson Silva, doesn't get much better than that. And his opponent, Tito Ortiz. Tito and I go back to the very beginning as well. Will they put on a great show? Absolutely. Will the action be at the level that we will showcase inside the Trigon on Saturday with no cost? Not a chance. So I would say if you want to see knockouts, if you want to see finishes, and oh, by the way, every single fighter in there, all 20 of them with a ton of talent, then tune in to Bare Knuckle. Watch the finishes, wait to see what the results are if you're one of those people, and then go, all right, I'll order the replay or whatever it is, or, you know, wait until it's over and then go and get it afterwards. But honestly, Amy, if you want to see the real finish, the real dynamic energy of bare knuckle fighting, the oldest form of combat sport, with men who have trained solely for that, and Vitor's done a great job. Anderson's transition. Tito's working hard. Evander's one of the greatest of all time, but he's 58. Come to us. We will give you a great show, one you will love forever, one you will be wanting more of immediately, and then check out the legends. Because to be quite honest, that's what I'm going to do, because they're my friends. Some of them are my heroes, but I'm going to be busy, you know, next to the Magic Man. With man, we got Al Bernstein and Claudia Trejos at the desk. When Paulie first came on board with Benny, and I'm like, okay, after all these years, I get to work with Paulie Malignaggi. I really feel blessed. I really, really do. I mean, the broadcast team that Mike has put together is honest. It's second to none, and take me out of it. It's second to none, and we'll give you a great show. You won't have to worry about secondary smoke, which is great for Al, because you remember what he had to deal with on the last Triller. And we'll put on some great entertainment. So save the money, come to us. We'll all watch that other one a little bit later. And they're right up the street now with Oscar getting COVID. Now they're right up the street. So forget it. Stay in Miami. Stay in Miami.
Miami is the new fight capital of the world.
There you go. From your lips to God's ears.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You.
All right, good luck.
For the support.
Yeah,
Thanks.
anytime. Bye-bye.